Dumelang, molweni, linjani, lekai, uchandet, nda. My name is Pearl Kupe, and it's such an honor to be with you at this very, very important and critical meeting, Nation at a Crossroads. And I want to first start off by acknowledging my colleagues. Thank you, Professor Arno van Niekerk. Thank you, Prince, Ndete Prince Mashele, Ndete John Matuhle. Thank you so much to my brother Zain Mias and also to Apostle Shane Singh. It is such an honor to be able to speak at this time and to be able to make a presentation at this time. Are we a nation at the crossroads? I do believe so, and I think many of us believe so. It's going to be largely dependent on the choices that we make in this time, in this season. It's a time which we need to come together. I love the fact that the South African national anthem talks about, sounds a call to come together. And that speaks of unity. And of course, our Springbok, team, rugby team, their hashtag is stronger together. And nobody knows that better than the nation of South Africa, that when we come together, things begin to change. And I'm trusting that these meetings and these discussions and these debates will bring an amazing nation come together and make critical decisions and choices and also actions to follow up. So my topic is to speak on righteousness, justice, and moral regeneration. And I want to just make a few remarks on this aspect. As somebody who has been a lawyer for over 40 years now, had that privilege of functioning and standing at the justice gates, I think it's appropriate for me to actually speak on the issue of justice. And I want to start off by just making a few preliminary remarks about justice. And I want to go back to my first year of law school, which was way back in 1986. And I remember in 1986, in fact, that's when I graduated. It wasn't my first year, but my graduation was in 1986. And I remember that one of the things, the justice tenets, foundational principles we were taught was that justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. And I'm reminded of a statement that Lord Hewitt made. He said, justice must not only be done, but manifestly and undoubtedly be seen to be done. So justice must not just be in name only. We need to see justice being done. And that's something we need to question in this time and in this season. Is justice being done? Or is it just a mirage? Is it just a camouflage, superficiality of justice? And yet we don't see real justice. Second tenet I want to just allude to is the tenet of justice delayed is justice denied. It's another very fundamental legal principle or principle of justice that we abide by. We can't be having backlogs in the court systems like we see now. It takes years and years for a case to come to court. And by that time, witnesses have forgotten their testimony. All sorts of things may happen. We see witnesses being killed even during that time because of lack of witness protection programs. So we cannot afford to delay the dispensation of justice. That's something we need to look at also in this dispensation. Now, I want to go to the Bible as well, because the Bible has a lot to say about justice as well. And there are two main scriptures in the book of Amos. Amos in 5:24 actually says, let justice roll down like what? Like water and righteousness, like an ever-flowing stream. And then if you go to Amos 5:15, there's an injunction for justice to be established at the gates. So whether you look at justice from the perspective of earthly justice court system that we use on earth, or you look at it from a spiritual perspective, if you are of the Christian faith like myself, then you see that justice is an inherent component of not only the faith, but of what is right, So another thing we were taught in first year law was the issue of law and morality. We did a whole course on law and morality. And let me tell you something. There is no nation, when you look at a nation and you begin to examine its laws, it tells you a lot about the nation and about the soul of a nation. When you see what has been legislated, if immorality is the primary thing that has been legislated, you've legislated sexual immorality and things that go against the family and contribute to the family breakdown, it simply tells you that the soul of the nation is defiled. And when you begin to criminalize morality as well, it is also telling you something about the soul of the nation. And this is why Proverbs 14, verse 34, tells us that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach. So laws are essentially those rules which define the moral code of a nation. Like I said, when you have a quick glance at a nation's law, it'll tell you whether they stand for righteousness or whether they stand for immorality. And we see a global trend that is pushing for laws that criminalize morality and actually legalize immorality. Now, going back to the Bible again, Proverbs 97:2 says, righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. And this observation also tells me that justice and righteousness, so we talked about justice and morality. Now the Bible refers to morality, uses rather the term righteousness. And you see there that the Bible is making that connection, that justice and righteousness go hand in hand. They are together. They are synonymous. They are twins. There is no justice without righteousness. And so that also translates into justice without morality is a sham. And that brings me to discussing the issue around the moral regeneration movement. How many remember that there was a time in the 1990s when former President Utata Mandela actually pushed for the establishment of the moral regeneration movement? This was formed in the late 1990s. This was a movement that was started, and it was a call for a spiritual and ethical reconstruction. And this movement was supposed to address things like crime, like corruption, and issues around social decay, to prevent social decay. So this movement was started. It was officially launched after a summit in 1998, and it was launched officially in April 2002. And some of the core values that directed this very honorable initiative, which had a very good intention, the core values that were supposed to drive this moral regeneration movement were human dignity and equality. Another core value was around the rule of law and democracy, and also family. Family and community values were also very key in terms of this moral regeneration movement. So it was supposed to push back things like GBV, things like child safety, all those things. This was the responsibility of the moral regeneration movement. And it really, I want to pose a question to us to say, what happened? What happened to that moral regeneration movement? When we look back and we reflect on our laws, and we see that the majority of our laws are moving towards the promotion of immorality, what then happened to the moral regeneration movement? Is it a question that we cannot entrust a movement to be driven by leaders who themselves have no morality? Is that a question that we need to pose and ponder on? Is it also another question that we need to ask is, where is the church? And what was the church's role in driving this moral regeneration movement? Did we fulfill the mandate that we were supposed to fulfill in this moral regeneration movement? Were we excluded, or did we exclude ourselves? Another question we need to ask ourselves: as active citizens, there was a role for active citizens to play. This was also supposed to be a movement that was driven through active citizenry. And what happened to the civil society-driven movement? Was there a negligence in some regard? So this is a question that I'm posing to us that we need to seriously ponder on. Because if we're looking at justice and we're looking at righteousness issues, we cannot ignore the fact that there was an initiative that was set up more than 30 years ago, and we have to actually look at it. What has it established? What has it done? Does it need to be resurrected? And if so, how? What are the structures, and how do we resurrect this initiative, which started with a good intention but didn't quite fulfill the intention that it was established for? Now, before I close, because this was not meant to be a very long submission or contribution, I want to talk a little bit about the state of the nation, where we see ourselves now from a justice perspective. And many of us know that we've had many commissions. Right now, we are concluding the Madlanga Commission. And prior to the Madlanga Commission was the Zondo Commission. Over 1 billion rands were spent on trying to find out, whether the nation was undergoing a state capture. Thousands and thousands of pages of reports were produced. And even though we've seen some small pockets, maybe whereby the SIU has been able to retrieve some monies back that from the so-called state captured, we haven't seen the perpetrators or those who were identified as perpetrators. We haven't seen them being brought to justice. Now we have the Madlanga Commission, and this commission is focusing specifically in the area of justice, which is why we can't omit talking about the Madlanga Commission when we talk about justice issues, when we talk about morality issues. This is a commission that is beginning to unravel the involvement of several judicial officers. We are seeing high-level judicial officers, officers who function within the judiciary specifically, being named as some of the key criminal elements. And we are seeing police officers are being mentioned, magistrates and judges are being mentioned, as well as politicians. Very, very high level officials are being mentioned. And there's a lot of exposure that is happening. So one of the things that is telling us about the state of a nation is that there's been a breakdown. When a nation undergoes the breakdown of the rule of law is critical and essential to the well-being and the well-functioning of any nation. So when you begin to see the breakdown of the rule of law, whereby not only are criminals allowed or enabled to do whatever they want to do, those criminals happen to be within the judiciary, which is the assigned institution that has been established to try and prevent criminality, then it becomes an added concern. Who's going to bring criminals to justice if the judicial officers themselves are, or many of them, are the said criminals, So we're seeing the breakdown. The state of the nation is breakdown of rule of law. And like I said, any nation that cannot effect the rule of law properly becomes a banana nation, a republic, a banana kind of nation where anything goes. What are the consequences that one undergoes as a nation where there's the breakdown of the rule of law? Well, here are some of the consequences. First of all, I've said that no nation can function properly when there's been a breakdown in the rule of law and in the justice system. When you look at it from a governance perspective, then you see rampant corruption. And that's what we're seeing now. Rampant corruption at the highest levels, not only the judiciary system, the home affairs system. Now we're having an issue around illegality of immigrants. And we find that one of the reasons that we're having for illegal immigrants happens to be the corruption that is rampant at home affairs, where people are getting illegal documents. Immigration officers are said to be earning, some of them, over 100,000 rand a month because they're being bribed to give out, illegal documentation. So you see rampant corruption begin to unfold itself. We're seeing our medical systems, seeing the health systems, rampant corruption there. Important things that need to be bought, equipment cannot be bought because of rampant corruption. We are seeing that. So that is one of the consequences of the breakdown of rule of law. From a safety perspective, there's another consequence of the breakdown of rule of law. And from a safety perspective, we see what? Loss of security, because crime and lawlessness become the name of the game. These become normalized. And so it means now, because the court and the judicial system is failing to criminalize and to imprison people who are guilty of crime, our safety and security as a people is now at risk, You see now the evolvement of arbitrary power. Rulers do whatever they want because there's no fear of going to prison. There's no fear of being brought to the justice courts. And there's just arbitrary power that is being, exercised out there. What else do we see? So it's not just from a governance perspective. Also, we can look at the economic perspective. There are economic consequences that come as a result of insufficient and inadequate justice systems and inadequate rule of law that is being applied. We see also economic issues. So investment now becomes a problem. There's an economic collapse. Investors do not go where there are unstable markets, where they do not know whether their business will survive or not. There will be employment issues. The unemployment statistics go up. There's less growth, and poverty also begins to grow. So there's economic instability and economic collapse as a result of the rule of law collapse. What else happens? Also, from the social perspective, there are social implications that arise from the rule of law issues. And now you see violation of rights. So freedom of speech, things like freedom of speech, safety and security, which are constitutionally empowered freedoms, now they begin to disappear because of the breakdown of the rule of law. And in addition to that, we see the public loss of trust. When we look at our nation, one question we have to ask ourselves as citizens: do we have trust in our leadership? Do we have that trust in our leadership? So I just wanted to share some thoughts with you that we need to ponder on, we need to look at. And this is such a beautiful nation. We need to be able to have trust again in our leaders. We need to see the rise of righteous servant leaders who are not looking for position and power, but who are there to serve, servant hearts, to serve the nation, and the best way they know possible, to see that the rule of law comes back, to see that justice is served, to see that justice is not delayed, because justice delayed is justice denied, to see that righteousness and justice go together hand in hand, and that morality comes back so that families can grow, and we are no longer dysfunctional families, but we are families that are growing up in unity with Ubuntu, and we now become that nation that can be exalted because we walk and move in righteousness. So I've given us some food for thought, and I hope that this presentation has been useful and has contributed something to the overall discussions. God richly bless you.